Welcome back to the Wilderness Protocol. The bullet shattered the coffee shop window 3 in from my head. I dove behind the counter as the barista, a college kid, screamed and hit the floor. Glass rained down like confetti at the world's worst party. "Stay down," I shouted, pulling my Beretta from the shoulder holster under my jacket. 20 years of killing for the Catholic Church teaches you to never go anywhere unarmed. Even for your morning espresso. Another shot punched through the brick wall behind me. These weren't ordinary bullets. The hole they left glowed with a soft golden light that made my skin crawl. I'd seen that light before 3 days ago in Rome when everything went to hell. My name is Garrett Walsh. For 2 decades, I was what the Vatican calls a guardian of sacred order. What everyone else would call a hired killer. The church has enemies. You see, people who dig too deep into the wrong archives, who ask the wrong questions about missing artifacts, who threaten to expose secrets that would shake the foundations of faith itself. That's where I came in. I was good at my job. The best. Actually, 47 confirmed kills across 6 continents. I could make a death look like anything from a heart attack to a skiing accident. The church paid well. And I never asked questions about the targets they gave me until 3 days ago in Rome when I discovered what they really were. Another golden bullet tore through the espresso machine, spraying steaming water everywhere. The barista, a college kid named Keegan, whimpered behind a bag of coffee beans. "They found me," I muttered, checking my clip. 15 rounds of blessed silver ammunition. The only thing that could hurt what was coming for me. They actually found me. I've been running since Rome. 3 days of planes, trains, and stolen cars trying to put distance between myself and the Vatican. I thought a small college town in Oregon would be safe. I was wrong. The coffee shop door exploded inward. Not kicked open. Not shot open. It simply ceased to exist. Vaporized by something that stepped through the doorway. I'd killed 47 people in my career, but I'd never seen anything like this before Rome. It looked human at first glance. 6 feet tall, wearing an expensive gray suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. But the details were all wrong in ways that made my brain hurt to process. Its skin was too perfect, like marble polish to mirror brightness. Its eyes were solid white. No pupils. No iris. Just burning white light that left after images when I looked away. When it moved, it didn't walk so much as glide. Feet barely touching the ground. "Garrett Walsh," it said, and its voice sounded like a church choir singing in perfect harmony. "You have been judged." I emptied half my clip into its chest. The blessed silver bullets hit their mark, tearing holes in the expensive suit. Golden light poured from the wounds like blood. But the thing didn't even stagger. "Judge this," I snarled, rolling behind the counter and making for the back exit. The thing that called itself an angel raised one hand. The rear door of the coffee shop turned to ash in seconds. No fire. No heat. Just there one moment and gone the next. "There is no escape from divine justice," it said, stepping over the counter like it weighed nothing at all. I grabbed Keegan by his coffee-stained apron and hauled him to his feet. "Emergency exit to there," he stammered, pointing to a side door marked with a red exit sign. The angel's attention focused on the kid, and those burning white eyes narrowed. An innocent. You would hide behind the pure of heart. Kids got nothing to do with this. I shoved Keegan toward the exit and put myself between him and the angel. Nothing. The thing tilted its head like a curious bird. He serves the bitter drink that clouds men's minds. He profits from addiction and sloth. His soul is already stained. That's when I realized these weren't angels at all. Not the kind from Sunday school. Anyway, real angels. According to every text I'd read in 20 years of Vatican service, were supposed to be guardians of the innocent. They were supposed to protect humanity. not judge a college kid for working at a coffee shop. What are you really? I asked, raising my gun again. The thing that wasn't an angel smiled, and its teeth were perfect white flames. We are what your church made us to be. We are the evolution of faith, the perfection of doctrine. That's when it all clicked into place. 3 days ago in Rome, I'd broken into the Vatican's deepest archive. I'd seen the files marked Project Seraphim. I'd read about the experiments, the rituals, the fusion of angelic essence with human ambition. The church hadn't been content to simply worship angels. They'd been trying to create their own. You're not divine, I said. You're manufactured. The false angel's smile widened. Does it matter? We serve the glory of God. We enforce His will. We eliminate His enemies. I served the church for 20 years. I never missed a target. Never asked questions. Never failed a mission. What enemy? You asked the wrong questions 3 days ago. You saw what you were not meant to see. Behind me, Keegan had managed to get the side door open. Cool Oregon air rushed in, carrying the scent of pine trees and freedom. Run, I told him. What about you? I've got unfinished business. The kid was smart enough not to argue. He disappeared into the alley, and I heard his footsteps pounding down the street. At least one of us was getting out of this alive. The false angel watched him go with those burning white eyes. He will not escape. We have others hunting him now. His association with you has condemned him. That's when I stopped feeling afraid and started feeling angry. Really truly burning in my gut. Angry. He's just a kid serving coffee. I said he aided a traitor to the church. That makes him complicit. I'd spent 20 years killing people for the Vatican. Heretics. They called them enemies of the faith. I'd never questioned whether they deserved to die because I trusted the church to make that call. But standing in that destroyed coffee shop, looking at this thing that called itself an angel, I finally understood what I'd really been doing all those years. I hadn't been protecting the faith. I'd been protecting the church's secrets. How many innocents have you killed? I asked. Innocence is a human concept. We deal only in divine justice. That's not an answer. It is the only answer that matters. I had 4 bullets left. Not enough to kill this thing, but maybe enough to buy time. The false angel took another step forward, and I noticed something interesting. When its feet touched the spilled coffee on the floor, steam rose from the liquid. Not heat exactly, but something else. Something that made the coffee evaporate instantly. That gave me an idea. Oregon gets a lot of rain. The college town of Millbrook was no exception. The morning had been overcast when I'd walked into the coffee shop, and I could hear water dripping from the gutters outside. You know what the difference is between you and a real angel? I asked, backing toward the open side door. Enlighten me. Real angels don't need to explain themselves. I fired my remaining bullets. Not at the false angel, but at the sprinkler system overhead. The pipes ruptured, sending cascades of water down into the coffee shop. The false angel looked up in annoyance as the water hit its perfect marble skin. That's when the screaming started. Water was hitting the false angel like acid. Steam poured from its body as the expensive suit dissolved, and the perfect skin began to blister and crack. Golden light bled from the wounds, but not the clean divine glow from before. This light was sickly infected. Wrong. Blessed water, I said, backing toward the door. Every building in a college town has to have a sprinkler system, and every Catholic church in America blesses the local water supply as a matter of course. Your bosses never told you that, did they? The false angel fell to its knees, clawing at its dissolving face. The voice that had sounded like a choir now sounded like grinding metal and breaking glass. This will not save you, it rasped. There are others. Hundreds of others. The church will not let you live to expose what you have seen. Then I guess I'd better expose it fast. I ran for the door. But the false angel had one more trick up its sleeve. As I reached the threshold, it spoke a single word in a language I didn't recognize. The word hit me like a physical blow, sending me sprawling into the alley. When I rolled over, gasping for breath, the thing was standing in the doorway. The water had stopped hitting it directly, and it was already starting to regenerate. The perfect skin was growing back like time-lapse photography, and the burning white eyes were getting brighter. You cannot run forever. Garrett Walsh. We will find you. We will judge you. And we will send you to whatever hell awaits traitors to the faith. I scrambled to my feet and ran down the alley toward the street. Behind me, I could hear the false angel pursuing, its feet making no sound on the wet pavement. But as we moved away from the coffee shop and its blessed water, I could feel it gaining ground. That's when I saw the fire hydrant. Water mainies in most American cities are still blessed by local churches, especially in small towns like Millbrook. I'd noticed it when I had arrived yesterday. The way the local Catholic church had a sign advertising their community water blessing ceremony every spring. I put my shoulder down and tackled the fire hydrant like I was back playing college football. The cap popped off and water exploded into the street, creating an instant river flowing down toward the coffee shop. The false angel tried to leap over the flowing water, but even the spray was enough to send it reeling. It landed hard on the opposite sidewalk, steam rising from its expensive shoes. This is not over. It called across the rushing water. No. I called back, pulling out my phone. It's not. I had a number memorized. A journalist named Patricia Rise, who'd been investigating Vatican finances for the Washington Post. 3 days ago, I would have been the one sent to kill her. Today, she was going to be my salvation. The call connected on the second ring. Rix, my name is Garrett Walsh. I've got a story for you about Project Seraphim and the Vatican's manufactured angels. There was a pause. Where are you? Oregon. But not for long. They're hunting me. Who's hunting you? I looked across the street at the false angel, still standing in the steam and spray from the broken hydrant. It raised one hand in what might have been a salute or a threat, then turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner. Angels, I said. The church's own personal angels. I'll meet you in Seattle. Pike Place Market. The fish-throwing stand. 2 hours. How do I know you won't turn me in? Because 20 minutes ago, they tried to kill me. 2. The line went dead. I pocketed the phone and started walking toward the bus station. 2 hours to Seattle. Hopefully enough time to stay ahead of whatever else the Vatican was sending after me. As I walked, I thought about the false angel's words. Hundreds of others. The church hadn't just created one of these things. They'd built an army. But I'd spent 20 years learning the church's secrets. I knew where the bodies were buried, literally and figuratively. I knew about the Swiss bank accounts, the forged documents, the blackmail files, and the list of people who'd been eliminated to protect the faith. Most importantly, I knew about Dr. Vincent Hayes, the disgraced geneticist who'd been working on Project Seraphim, the man who'd figured out how to bind angelic essence to artificial flesh, the man who died in a convenient car accident 2 weeks ago, except he hadn't died. I'd faked his death myself on orders from Cardinal Morrison. Dr. Hayes was alive and hiding in a safe house in Montana, protected by the church until his research was complete. That research included the one thing that could stop the manufactured angels permanently. A kill switch built into their genetic code that would shut them all down simultaneously. I just had to get to Montana and convince a man I'd kidnapped to help me destroy his own creation. First, though, I had to survive Seattle. The bus pulled up to the stop, brakes hissing in the afternoon rain. As I climbed aboard, I caught a glimpse of something in the reflection of the window, another figure in an expensive suit standing at the far end of the street. They'd already sent the next one. I paid my fare and took a seat in the back. Checking my watch. 1 hour and 43 minutes to Seattle. 1 hour and 43 minutes to stay alive long enough to expose the truth. Outside, the Oregon countryside rolled by in a blur of green trees and gray sky. Somewhere behind us, the false angels were coming. Somewhere ahead, Patricia Rise was waiting with a story that could bring down the Vatican itself. And somewhere in between, I had to figure out how to stay human long enough to save humanity from the church's perfect angels. The fish flew through the air like silver missiles. And Pike Place Market erupted in cheers as the vendors tossed salmon back and forth across their stalls. Tourists snapped photos while locals pushed through the crowd, focused on their shopping. It was the perfect place to hide in plain sight. I spotted Patricia Rise immediately. She was exactly what I'd expected from a Washington Post investigative journalist. Mid-fours, sharpied, wearing a practical raincoat, and carrying a leather messenger bag that probably held enough recording equipment to bring down a government. She was pretending to examine the fish display, but I could see her checking every face in the crowd. Patricia. I approached from her blind side, keeping my voice low. She turned and I saw the bruise on her left cheek. Fresh. Maybe 6 hours old. Garrett Walsh. That's me. Prove it. I'd been expecting this. 3 days ago, I broke into Vatican Archives Section 12. I photographed documents related to Project Seraphim, a program designed to create artificial angels using genetic engineering and what they call divine essence binding. The project leader was Dr. Vincent Hayes, supposedly killed in a car accident 2 weeks ago. Except I faked his death on orders from Cardinal Morrison. She nodded slowly. Okay. You're either Garrett Walsh or you're the most well-informed assassin the Vatican has ever sent. If I were here to kill you, you'd already be dead. Comforting. She gestured toward a coffee cart. Let's walk and talk. I don't like standing still anymore. We moved through the market, weaving between tourists and vendors. I kept checking the crowd for expensive suits and perfect faces. But so far we seem to be clear. Tell me about this morning, Patricia said, pulling out a small digital recorder. I described the attack at the coffee shop. The false angel. The way Blessed Water had heard it. Patricia listened without interruption, occasionally making notes in a small pad. You said they tried to kill you, too. I said when I finished. This M.O. Running around 8 a.m. I was leaving my apartment building when a man in a gray suit approached me. Said he wanted to discuss my Vatican investigation. When I told him to make an appointment through my editor, he grabbed my arm. She touched the bruise on her cheek. I've been taking self-defense classes since college. Broke his nose with my elbow and ran. What did he look like? Perfect. Too perfect. Like someone had taken a male model and painted him with airbrush and his eyes. She shuddered. They were completely white. No pupils. Another manufactured angel. The church was moving fast. Faster than I'd expected. They must have identified Patricia as a threat weeks ago. Long before I broke into the archives. How much do you know about Project Seraphim? I asked. Bits and pieces. Financial records show the Vatican has been funneling money into something called the Divine Enhancement Initiative for the past 5 years. Shell companies. Offshore accounts. Payments to genetic research facilities. But I could never find the actual project because it's classified above cardinal level. Only the Pope and 3 others know the full scope. We passed a flower vendor and Patricia bought a small bouquet of daisies. To anyone watching, we looked like a couple on a casual date. Smart. What's the full scope? She asked. The church has been losing influence for decades. Declining membership. Financial scandals. competition from other religions, and secular humanism. So, they decided to bring back the age of miracles by creating artificial angels. Exactly. Beings that could perform what look like miracles. Enforce divine judgment. Eliminate the church's enemies with impunity. Who's going to question an angel of God? Patricia stopped walking. How many have they created? According to the files, I saw at least 200. Maybe more. 200 artificial angels. She scribbled notes frantically. And they're programmed to serve the Vatican. Not programmed. Conditioned. The process involves binding something they call divine essence to artificially grown human tissue. The result is a being that believes absolutely in its divine mission. They can't be reasoned with. Can't be turned. Can't be stopped except by blessed water. That's just a weakness in the binding process. Too much holy water disrupts the essence matrix. But the church will fix that flaw in the next generation. We'd reached the end of the fish market and were moving into the maze of small shops that made up the rest of Pike Place. I was starting to think we might actually be safe when I saw him. He was standing by a used bookstore pretending to browse the outdoor display. Another perfect face. Another expensive suit. This one had chosen a navy blue instead of gray. But the burning white eyes were unmistakable. "We've got company," I said quietly. Patricia followed my gaze and went pale. "That's him. That's the one who attacked me this morning. Stay calm. Keep walking. When I say run, head for that shop with the green awning. There's a back exit through the alley." The false angel had spotted us. It closed the book it had been pretending to read and started walking in our direction. Its movement was too smooth, too fluid. People in the crowd unconsciously stepped aside to let it pass. Even though they probably couldn't say why. "Can you stop it like you did the other one?" Patricia asked. "Not without a water source. And these things learn from each other's experiences. It'll be ready for that trick." We were 20 feet apart. Now, the false angel's perfect face remained expressionless. But I could see purpose in those burning white eyes. It was calculating, measuring distances, planning its attack. That's when the street musicians saved our lives. An old man with a guitar had set up near the bookstore entrance, playing folk songs for tips. As the false angel passed him, something strange happened. The music faltered, the guitar strings going out of tune all at once. The old man looked up in confusion and his eyes met the false angel's burning white gaze. "Jesus Christ," the old man whispered. The false angel stopped walking. Its perfect face twisted in what might have been pain, and it raised both hands to its temples. "Run," I told Patricia. We bolted for the green awning shop while the false angel writhed in apparent agony. Behind us, I could hear the old man's guitar playing again. But now the tune was different. Older. Something that sounded like a hymn from my childhood. In here, Patricia yanked open the door to what turned out to be an antique shop. We ran through displays of old furniture and religious artifacts, heading for the back exit. What happened back there? Patricia gasped as we reached the alley. "I'm not sure, but I think that old man just proved these things aren't as divine as they pretend to be." We emerged onto a side street and immediately hailed a cab. As we pulled away, I looked back to see the false angel stumbling out of the market. Its perfect composure completely shattered. "Where to?" the cab driver asked. "Airport," I said, "as fast as you can." Patricia stared at me. "Airport. I thought we were going to break this story." "We are. But first we need to get to Montana." "Montana? That's where Dr. Hayes is hiding. And he's the only one who can stop these things permanently." The cab pulled onto the freeway heading south towards SeaTac International. I pulled out my phone and started making calls using credit cards and identities I'd established over 20 years of Vatican service. 2 tickets to Billings, Montana, I told the airline booking agent. Next available flight. What makes you think this, Dr. Hayes will help us? Patricia asked. Because I'm going to tell him the truth about what the church has been doing with his research. Which is, I thought about the files I'd seen in the Vatican archives. The test subjects. The failed experiments. The human volunteers who'd been promised salvation and received only death. Hayes thought he was creating instruments of divine will. Perfect beings who could guide humanity toward salvation. What he actually created were weapons. The church has been using his angels to eliminate anyone who threatens their power. Patricia's eyes widened. The businessmen who were going to expose Vatican finances dead. The archaeologist who found evidence contradicting church history dead. The politician who was going to investigate Vatican influence in government. I killed him myself. Made it look like a heart attack. The cab pulled up to the airport departure terminal. I paid the driver and we headed inside. Moving quickly through the crowds. Flight 447 to Billings. Now boarding at gate 12. Announced the PA system. That's us, I said. As we approached the security checkpoint. Patricia grabbed my arm. What if they're waiting for us? Then we're dead. But if we don't try, everyone else is dead. 2. We made it through security without incident. The false angels apparently hadn't anticipated us leaving Seattle so quickly. Or maybe they were still recovering from whatever the old man's music had done to them. The flight to Billings was 2 hours of turbulence and bad airline coffee. Patricia spent the time reviewing her notes and asking detailed questions about church hierarchy, financial structures, and the people responsible for Project Seraphim. Cardinal Morrison is the project coordinator. I explained. He reports directly to the Pope. But I think even the Pope doesn't know the full extent of what they've created. And you're sure Dr. Hayes is in Montana. I drove him there myself. Safe house about 50 miles north of Billings up in the mountains. Off-grid. Defensible. Perfect place to hide a kidnapped scientist. Kidnapped. The church told him his family was in danger from terrorists. Offered him protection in exchange for completing his research. He doesn't know I was ordered to kill him once the project was finished. The plane touched down in Billings just as the sun was setting. We rented a car and drove north into the Montana wilderness, following back roads that wound through pine forests and rocky hills. There, I said, pointing to a cluster of lights in the distance. That's the safe house. We parked at the bottom of the access road and hiked the last half mile on foot. The safe house was a converted hunting lodge surrounded by motion sensors and security cameras. I disabled the perimeter alarms with codes I'd memorized 2 weeks ago. Dr. Vincent Hayes was exactly where I'd left him. Sitting in the main room, working on equations at a laptop computer, surrounded by genetic sequencing equipment and religious texts. He looked up as we entered, and his face went through a series of emotions. Fear, recognition, confusion. Garrett, what are you doing here? And who is this woman? Dr. Hayes, this is Patricia Rise from the Washington Post. We need to talk. He stood up slowly. A thin man in his 60s with gray hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The church said you were on assignment in Europe. The church lied to you about a lot of things. I spent the next hour explaining everything. The manufactured angels. The killings. The way his research had been weaponized. Patricia recorded it all, asking follow-up questions and taking notes. Dr. Hayes listened in growing horror. When I finished, he sat down heavily in his chair and put his head in his hands. They told me I was creating guardians. He whispered, beings who would protect the innocent and guide humanity toward divine truth. Instead, you created the perfect killers. Patricia said gently, how many people have died because of my work? At least 100. I said, probably more. Dr. Hayes was quiet for a long time. Then he looked up with determination in his eyes. "The kill switch," he said. "What kill switch?" "I built a fail-safe into the genetic matrix. A way to shut down all the manufactured angels simultaneously in case the project was ever compromised." He turned to his laptop and started typing rapidly. "It requires a specific frequency broadcast combined with a genetic trigger sequence. Can you activate it?" "Yes. But I'll need access to a military-grade radio transmitter. Something powerful enough to reach angels anywhere in the world." Patricia and I looked at each other. "Malmstrom Air Force Base," she said. "It's only about 2 hours from here. How do we get access to a military base?" I asked. "We don't." Patricia pulled out her phone. "But I know someone who does." The call took 15 minutes. Patricia's contact was a colonel named Bradley Reeves. Someone she'd worked with on a story about military contractors. He agreed to meet us at the base. But only after Patricia convinced him the story was worth the risk to his career. We loaded Dr. Hayes's equipment into the rental car and drove through the night toward Malmstrom. Behind us, the Montana wilderness stretched out under a canopy of stars. Ahead of us lay the most heavily guarded nuclear missile facility in North America. "They'll be waiting for us," I said as we approached the base perimeter. "Who will?" Patricia asked. "The angels. They have to know we're trying to stop them." I was right. As we pulled up to the main gate, I saw them. 3 figures in expensive suits standing in the guard shack parking lot. They weren't even pretending to be human anymore. Their white eyes blazed like searchlights in the darkness. "Back up," I told Patricia. "Now." She threw the car in reverse. But it was too late. One of the false angels raised its hand and our engine died. The headlights went out. Even the radio went silent. We sat in the darkness, watching the 3 perfect figures walk toward us with inhuman grace. "The transmitter," Dr. Hayes said urgently. "I need to reach the transmitter. It's inside the base. We'll never make it. Then we're all dead." That's when Colonel Reeves saved the day. The base's perimeter spotlights suddenly blazed to life, flooding the area with harsh white light. The false angels stopped walking and raised their hands to shield their eyes. "This is Colonel Bradley Reeves. Malmstrom Air Force Base," boomed a voice over the PA system. "You are trespassing on federal property. Identify yourselves immediately." The false angels turned toward the guard shack. And I saw something I'd never seen before. They looked confused, uncertain. These things had been created to operate in the gray areas of human society, to eliminate targets quietly and efficiently. They had no protocol for dealing with military confrontation. "Go," I told Patricia. "Drive straight for the gate." She hit the gas and our car lurched forward. The engine was dead, but we had enough momentum to coast the last 100 yards. The guards at the gate, trained soldiers who dealt with everything from terrorists to drunk airmen, took one look at the false angels and opened fire. Military ammunition, even standard rounds, apparently had some effect on manufactured angels. The false angels staggered under the barrage, golden light bleeding from multiple wounds. But they didn't fall. Instead, they turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness as suddenly as they'd appeared. Inside, Colonel Reeves ordered as we reached the gate. "All of you, now." Malmstrom Air Force Base is home to some of the most powerful radio equipment in the world. Within an hour, Dr. Hayes had connected his laptop to the base's emergency broadcast system and was entering the kill sequence he'd programmed years ago. "This will work?" Colonel Reeves asked. "If my calculations are correct." "Yes. The genetic trigger will cause immediate cellular breakdown in all manufactured angels worldwide. And if your calculations are wrong." Dr. Hayes looked up from his keyboard. "Then, God help us all." He pressed enter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every piece of electronic equipment on the base began picking up the same signal. A low-frequency pulse that seemed to resonate in our bones. It's working. Dr. Hayes breathed. The signal is propagating worldwide. Within 6 hours, every manufactured angel on Earth will be dead. That was 3 months ago. Patricia's story ran on the front page of the Washington Post and was picked up by news outlets around the world. The Vatican initially denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. Cardinal Morrison was quietly removed from his position. The Pope issued a statement condemning the unauthorized research and promising full cooperation with international investigators. Dr. Hayes surrendered himself to federal authorities and is currently serving a reduced sentence in exchange for his testimony. He spends his time in minimum security prison teaching genetics to other inmates and writing his memoirs. Patricia won a Pulitzer Prize for her reporting. She's currently working on a book about the manufactured angels and the Church's secret history. As for me, well, I'm officially dead. The Vatican put out a statement saying I'd been killed in a terrorist attack in Rome. It's easier for everyone if Garrett Walsh stays buried. I live quietly now in a small town in Colorado. I teach self-defense classes at the local community center and volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends. It's not the life I expected, but it's peaceful. Sometimes late at night, I think about the 47 people I killed for the Church. I wonder if any of them were actually innocent. If any of them were just asking the wrong questions or digging too deep into the wrong secrets. I'll never know for sure, but at least I know there won't be any more manufactured angels hunting people like them. The Church is still out there, still powerful, still keeping secrets. But they lost their perfect weapons. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes stopping the monsters is the best you can do. Thank you for listening to this entry from the Wilderness Protocol. If you made it through this report and wish to be briefed on future incidents, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel.